Welcome to Running in the 70s, where we interview, meet, and get to know athletes of all kind who were running in the 70s. I'm your host, Matthew Kleinowski.
Okay, let's fire away. I'm ready when you are.
Today on the podcast, we're back in the northeast of the U.S. talking to a 1970s runner, also a track coach, a track and field coach, and somebody who got involved in the sport and has some great stories as a photographer. Welcome on the podcast today, Bob Costello, known to many as Abbott. Hi, Abbott.
How you doing, Matt? Good to hear from you.
Let's introduce you from a perspective of competition. What was the first time you were motivated to do something as a competitor?
Things actually started back in 1970. I was a sophomore in high school, sort of a roundabout way how I ended up in track and field, cross country, and distance running. I played trumpet in the high school band. I wanted to improve my win. One of the other trumpet players who was a year ahead of me said, well, you got to go out to track, because he ran track also and was pretty good at it on a high school level. That's what I did. Went out. They took one look at me and said, you're a 2-miler, not in metric then. And in Pennsylvania at that time, if you ran the 2-mile in high school, you weren't allowed to compete in any other event because they thought it was too much for an athlete, especially a young athlete in high school. That entire year, we had a really good 2-miler, and my entire goal that entire year was, after I got lapped by our top guy, was not to finish last on our team and at least beat the last person of whatever school we were competing against. So that was my initial foray into distance running. One of the things that really lit the fire underneath me was we were going to a dual meet. We had a fairly nice-sized team. First dual meet away, they said, well, you're not going to go because you're not really that good and we don't have room on the bus. I bit the bullet on that and digested it and came out the next year as a junior and proceeded to win the very first meet in the 2-mile. And that got the fire started. Really good.
Well, what happened in between those 2 years?
I just figured out, I just learned by watching the guys that were ahead of me, what they were doing, how they were training. And I just started running a little bit more. I mean, I came from a zero background, but I saw that. So, back in the 70s, you walked, you ran, or you rode a bike to get somewhere. All that winter, that's what I did. And I didn't run cross country until senior year in high school because they wouldn't let us do cross country and be in the band at the same time. That's how it got going. You started training a little bit, came back that junior year in 71 and won the first meet. It was the only one I won that year.
Wow.
I got a taste of what it was like to win. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
How did it feel then to not win the rest of the year? Was that just competitive motivation, or what were your expectations after winning the first race?
I thought I should be able to be up there again, but not alone did it put a fire under me. It also put a fire under one of my teammates that said, you're never going to beat me again. And I didn't that year.
That's great. How was your coaching? What kind of coaching, what kind of equipment, what kind of facilities did you have?
We ran on a cinder track. Now, it was a good cinder track in Connellsville, but it was a cinder track. The spikes were what the school gave they used, and they weren't that great. As far as training from the coaches, our head coach, everybody loved the guy. But looking back now on hindsight, he knew a little bit of what to do with runners, especially distance runners, but not a lot compared to what, obviously, in hindsight, 2020 being the much clearer version of what could have been done or should have been done. There's a lot of trial and error.
That was the beginning of the 70s. Did the larger world of track and field and what was going on there as we headed into an Olympic year, did that catch your attention?
It did in 72 with Frank Shorter. Frank Shorter and Steve Prefontaine. Watching the Olympics, that would have been my freshman year in college at IUP, which I was actually at my first year at the Branch Catania. That definitely got me motivated because I had a fairly decent high school senior year. I got my 2-mile time down to 10 minutes and 2 seconds, finished 9th in the WPIL, which was our district meet. And then I stepped away from it, mainly because I was trying to be a music major at IUP in the trumpet. They lost my application for my audition at IUP, so I only had like a week to prepare when I got the music I wanted to audition with. So I got stuck at Catania for a year, and towards the end of that freshman year, myself and a teammate who was a pole vaulter decided that we wanted to get back into it. So we actually called the head track and field coach at IUP, Dr. Lou Sutton, and he was very gracious, said, hey, when you guys get up here, come on up. Pole vaulter decided that college wasn't for him, and he went on with his other life work. I got up to IUP that freshman, my sophomore year, and there was a fellow on the team named Tim Lolich who I ran against in high school. He was a year ahead of me. He ran at Laurel Highlands, which is where I eventually ended up teaching and coaching track and field and cross country. Tim had said, hey, I ran into him and I was debating whether I should go or not because I'd taken a year off. But I did. It was a good move on my part.
Just clarify for some of the people who may not know you or know about this idea. IUP had a couple branch campuses. So you were an IUP student, but you were attending at a much smaller and remote campus initially.
That is right. They had two branches, one at Katanning and one was at Punxsutawney. And I ended up at the branch campus at Katanning thinking, okay, I'll go into business education, put my year in there, take my basic classes, transfer up to the main campus, reapply to the music department, and go from there. Well, after some thought about some things, I think I'm just going to stay in the business end because if I'm not a business teacher, all those classes are all applicable to many things in life. As much as I like playing music, I could see that was really a very, after you get out for a while and see how narrow the field that is for a job opportunity, that wasn't the way to go.
You took a year off from running, from competing at least. What did you do in terms of running and training to get ready for joining the cross-country or track teams when you were headed back to the main campus?
I'll tell you what I did. I would run a little bit that spring. The Katanning campus is right along the Allegheny River in Katanning. I'd run from the place I was staying at with 5 other fellows. I'd run down along the river about a mile or two and come back, and I'd do that about maybe 2 times a week. So I was getting a grand total of maybe 8 to 10 miles in. I came back, had a job in the summer in a factory. Basically, when that job was off a couple of weeks before I went back to IUP as a sophomore, I ran with the cross-country team, the high school team a little bit, and went up. So I went in as a sophomore with next to no mileage.
And how brutal was the switch to university-level training?
It was eye-opening. I can remember the first time doing a couple workouts. I remember the first workout we did, it was our assistant coach, Ed Fry. We were doing 2,400 on the track with about 30 seconds rest, and I thought, there's no way these guys are doing 20. But they were doing 20. And it was 30 seconds rest. I got that workout in and staggered back, and I said, okay, I survived. Tomorrow's another day. And then we went on what was then a long run. We went on an IUP, what was called our 9-mile loop, when there were about, maybe 20, 25 of us. We always had a very big team compared to the numbers they get today. I never ran 9 miles in my life. I thought, well, I got to stay with these guys because I have no idea where I am at. I had to stay with them to get back to campus. I said, well, now I know I can do 2,400. I know I can run 9 miles, so we're getting rolling here. Let's just see where this goes.
Let's just talk about Tim Lolich a little bit. He went on to be the number 1 man for the team. Was that his senior year?
He was one of our top finishers his senior year. Tim ran cross-country and track. He ran cross-country his senior year, but I don't believe he did compete his senior year in track. I think he had an internship job which kept him from doing that. I know at the college conference championship in cross-country, I believe he was our top finisher. He finished like 7th or 8th. Had a really, really good race. He and another fellow named Tom McGuire really showed me what to do, kept me out of trouble, and said, hey, we got to do this. And they were really a good start, upperclassmen, and showed me a lot of what it takes to be good.
IUP had something not necessarily unique, but pretty precious to a lot of the people that ran there, the cross-country house.
First time they got the house together would have been my junior year, and I didn't live in the house my junior year. Another runner by the name of Stanley Rosenthal found the place and got 9 or 10 of the guys together, and 2 or 3 of them did not run cross country, and had the cross-country house, 1034 Washington Street. I moved in the next year. And I'll tell you what a good atmosphere to train, because there was always someone there to run with. Whether it was Danny Friedrich, Donnie Friedline, Kerry Green, there was always someone. I'd moved in that summer before my senior year. A class I needed was only offered in the summer, so I stayed up all summer, trained that summer a lot with Tim Burke and Coach Fry, who was an outstanding runner on his own. And that's how the cross-country house really helped develop, because you were always around it with people to go. And the days you didn't go, there was someone there to say, come on, we're going. We also had a grad student there named Paul Cameron, who was a two-time All-American from Grove City, was staying with us too. It was good. I thought, man, it'd be nice to be All-American. This guy did it. Maybe I could do it. Many a long runs when I didn't want to go were taken care of. I know that summer I had an 8 o'clock class. At the time, there were 3-week classes, then you could take 2 classes for 6 weeks, then they had a 3-week session for classes then. And the first one I had at 8 o'clock, and I told Coach Fry, I said, well, I got an 8 o'clock class. I won't be able to run in the morning. He goes, oh, yeah, we'll go at 5:30. I said, yeah, we'll go at 5:30, sure. Well, we were never one to shut the doors or lock the doors at the cross-country house. So the first day at about 5:25, Ed Fry's in my bedroom shaking me awake saying, meet me down at the donut shop in 5 minutes. I'm going to go wake up Tim. And that's what we did all summer. We were running 8 miles in the morning at 5:30, get to class. 3:30 in the afternoon, we would go out for another 8 to 10, 12, and do the intervals and then the tempo runs. And then Kerry Green and Paul Cameron would make sure I got the long runs in on the weekends. And boy, did it pay off. It really did. I thought my time dropped like crazy.
Yeah, and that cross-country house, so it's off-campus living. It's a regular residential house, but it was almost straight across the street from the campus. You were right there.
The location was tremendous. Literally, you walked across the street and you were there, right in the Oakland. You could get back, hurry up, clean up, and get to your class or grab breakfast or whatever. The location actually was better than some of the location of the dorms on campus.
Let's talk about how that went for you then. What was the progression of your improvement during university?
My sophomore year was cross-country season. It was a learning process. We had quite a group of guys. And we had an A team, a B team, a C team, even a C-plus team. My first time in a 5-mile time trial, the top 7, 8 guys didn't run, and I think I finished second or third, which put me like 8th or 9th man, which was really a surprise because I mean, in a zero background thinking, hey, I can compete here. No doubt. I got through that sophomore year pretty good. When track season came along, they were going to do a southern trip to Florida. And it came down to myself, a high jumper, to the last person to go, and the coach decided, probably because my times were okay in track but not outstanding, they took the high jumper, which ticked me off a little bit. So when they were in Florida for that week over break, I came home and ran every day. Everyone came back, and they had a dual meet against Clarion, because we did a lot of dual meets then. Distance guys, I guess they had too much fun in Florida, got their clock clean. So Ed Fry came back and just hammered us to 4 counts again, and then we were going to Lock Haven for a dual meet. And I was going, and the coach said, whoever our top 3-miler is in this meet at Lock Haven will be our third man at the conference meet, which was going to be at East Stroudsburg that year. I ran the 3-mile, won the 3-mile, so I got to go to the state conference meet at East Stroudsburg that year. That helped a lot. From there, the junior year, I don't want to say I sat back on my laurels, but I could have trained hard. I really could have. The cross country went well. I was like the 8th man on the team. The top 7 ran the NAIA national meet, which was in Salina, Kansas. So the top 7 went. My roommate at the time, who had a car, his name was Greg Sloan. The guys got about $65 to get together. He said, if you can talk Greg and driving out, Coach Sutton said you got a place to stay. So we left it Friday on a 3 o'clock, and on 3 o'clock the next day, we pulled into Salina, Kansas with Greg and 2 of the girlfriends of the guys on the team. So I got to see what it was like to be at a championship meet but not be in it, which was interesting. So we went through track season the junior year, and it was okay. I wasn't running up to my ability. And sometimes the coach says something to you, and it really sits on you. Season was over, and Ed Fry, I was coming out of our field house. Season was over, and we only had a couple of days of school left. Everyone was taking finals. And I'm not sure exactly how we got on the subject. Ed just looked at me and said, you could have really helped us if you'd have trained. And boy, that talk about putting a dagger in you. I said, I didn't train? Okay. And that summer I was up there and trained. We come to our first cross-country meet my senior year, and we ran at Mack Park. Now, my best time on that course from the year before was like 27 minutes, 15 seconds. We were running against Frostberg, and Dan Friedrich and I ended up tied for first. And I heard him yell 46 when I come across the line. I'm thinking, okay, 26-46. I got 30 seconds better. I'm heading in the right direction. I finished the cool down, and Tom McGuire, who had graduated the year previous and had a teaching job up in Indiana at the elementary school, was there to watch the meet. Tom came up and said, man, what got into you? I said, well, Tom, I did a lot of hard training over the summer. I dropped 30 seconds, 26-46. He looked at me and goes, what are you talking about? He goes, what are you talking about? He goes, your time was 25-46. I'm like, oh, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Coach Fry, I think you just created a monster.
Yeah.
At the time, it was like the 7th or 8th fastest time that had ever been ran on the course. That was it. From then on, I knew I could run with anybody, on any given day. That was sort of the progression of how it happened from a high school kid who got lapped as a sophomore. I only ran cross country 1 year in high school, took a year off, and then ran 3 years collegiately. I'd love to have came back for 1 more year, but finances got in the way, as it does for a lot of people.
Yeah, well, that's a great story. That's well told, too. Let me ask you about the school year and activities. Did you stay in business, and what about your music through those years?
The trumpet playing went to the wayside. I still played when I could for fun, but then I got into just staying in the business education major. Actually, it was business education / distributive education, which was an offshoot that worked out of vocational technical schools in the state. So I stayed with the business. Again, only ran for 3 years. We went to the NCAA national meet that year. I missed All-American by like 17, 18, 20 seconds. And we ran a 5-mile race time. Class-wise, running cross-country and track helped me academically, too. It taught me how to manage my time better. I was around some really good student athletes that I just watched and said, hey, their grades are good. I got to mimic what these guys are doing. So I was the first person in my family to go to college, so it was a whole new atmosphere on what to do and how to do it. A lot of learning by just observing what everyone else is doing. I said, well, they're getting the grades. You're not. Do what they do. Yeah. Same way for running. So that helped out that way, too.
Obviously, Coach Fry had a big impact on you, and he's gone now. Do you have anything else to say about Coach Fry?
I'll tell you what, he was just a good person all the way around. Obviously, a great coach who knew what to do, but just a good person. If you needed something, he'd help you. I was always tight on cash my senior year. I was working intramurals for 20 hours a week to make things made, scrapping by, cooking my own meals at the cross-country house. And Ed would say, every Thursday you come down to the house and eat with us. And his wife, Betsy, which, was great. It was a great deal. Anyone that knew the man understood the man and just had a great sense of humor and a hard worker. It doesn't take a lot to see this. If they're working hard, I got to be working hard. Ed would run most of the workouts with us if he wasn't, he got a little hurt later in his career, but we could never beat him. I'm thinking, this guy's 36, 37 years old and we can't kick his butt. We got to work harder. Now, I think he knew that way of making us get more out of it. He was really good at taking not great high school track and field or cross-country athletes, making them so much better. Mm-hmm. Because we didn't have a lot of superstars coming out of high school at IEP, but we just collectively, through him, Dr. Sutton getting some of our guys out and recruiting made us so much better. Dick Wolf being our first All-American, a lot of guys was in the next club we called it the AAA, Almost All-American Club.
It was Division II, NAIA, not a lot, if any, scholarship money. There was work study and some of that other stuff.
That's right. My senior year, we were the first cross-country team to go to the NCAA national meet. It wasn't set up like it is now where you went to a regional meet and you qualified and they took X number of teams. We could go, and at the beginning of the season, Coach Sutton didn't think we were going to have that good a team because we had lost a lot. McGuire, Tim Lowley, Bill O'Neill. We lost a lot of guys. Tom McDowell at graduation. But all of a sudden, we just kept getting better and better. Young guys like Danny Councilman came along. Dick Wolf, who was an excellent runner. Danny Friedrich. Mark Knoll. A freshman Ken Trillick. Coach decided we'll go to NCAA, which were held at the Newport Beach Country Club in Orange County, south of Los Angeles, California. So that was a big deal. Dr. Sutton raised most of the money from what the school wouldn't give so we could get there. And one of the things he did, we all got a $100 book scholarship, which he came, we got the check, we signed the check, and we gave the check right back to Dr. Sutton so he could pay for the airfare.
That's great. Okay, how were you traveling to meets? That was an airfare. How did you get around?
Right.
How did you get to the meets that were ground transport during the season?
Ground transport, we would get the vans out. IUP through the co-op store had vans, 12-passenger vans, and we would get the vans. If coach wasn't driving, some of the guys could take basically like a driving test as a way to show that we could drive the van, and they'd let some of the older guys drive. Most of the time it was by van.
Let's talk about trainers, injuries that happened, injury treatment, and what was available, and how you dealt with anything, the aches and pains and any injuries you had.
Back then, the shoes were nothing like they are now. We ran a lot in a shoe called the Tiger Corsair, which was a pre-run company of ASICS. It would be now. Nike was just in their infancy, and we'd run in the Nike Corsair, which was a leather upper shoe, a very solid, hard rubber type bottom, not like a black rubber, but a white rubber. And we would get a pair of those to run in. We basically had our own spikes to work with then, and I bought a pair in high school of Adidas Sprint spikes because I didn't know the difference between a sprint spike and a distance spike.
Your calves may have found out the difference once you're on the track. Yeah.
And my heels from heel bruises on rocks. We would run in those Nike Corsairs, as anyone knows the terrain a lot. You'd wear down that hill area first. Well, there was a shoe repair shop in Indiana named Valenti's, and we would go on to Valenti's, and for $3, he would rebuild and put on another basic part of the heel, the shoe. So we literally ran through those shoes until we broke through the leather. And that was our shoes. And to this day, it's a wonder that we can walk. Not alone, still run a little bit from the way the shoes were then compared to what they are now. Yes, to our toughness, we didn't have a ton of really bad injuries, hamstrings and stuff like that, because we were running senior year. I mean, if you didn't put in 100 miles plus a week, we wondered why you weren't training. Our track at the time was an asphalt track. Back in 72, Hurricane Andrew came storming through Pennsylvania and stalled out, and they'd put the asphalt surface in from the cinder track that IUP had, and they were going to put an 8-lane all-weather track in. Well, they ran out of the money because they had to use the money for the track to fix some of the roofs on some of the buildings that got messed up from the hurricane. And they didn't have the money, so basically they lined off the asphalt where the track was supposed to be, drilled holes where to put the blocks on, and that's what we ran on.
That's great history.
Why we weren't injured more, I don't know. We should have been.
One, refer back to Coach Fry. Did he talk about his World Masters Championship to you guys that he ran?
Yeah, I forget exactly what year it was, but I was up there.
Well, I know because I'm sitting in Toronto. So the very first World Masters Championship, I think, was that event. It was in Toronto. We were supposed to hold the 2020 here as an anniversary of that, and it got canceled, of course, from COVID. So that race, I believe, was 1975 in Toronto.
Okay, that's the summer that I'd have been up there training with Coach and Tim Burke, and we trained a lot for that. He really wanted to win that, which he did. He won the 10,000 meter going away.
I think he lapped everybody.
I think you're correct.
At that point, Masters started at age 35, and he was probably just over 35. So, and I'm not sure if they had 5-year age groups or everybody, but yeah, I think he dominated.
It wasn't even close. We were doing that training a lot with him, and with Tim Burke and I, we were doing whatever Ed wanted to do. Hard workouts on running the hills at Mac Park, 3:30 in the afternoon on the track at IUP. Sometimes we would go over to Mac Park, which had a half-mile horse track, like a dirt clay surface, and we would do repeats there. We trained. We trained hard. We still couldn't beat him. just couldn't beat him. Simple as that. A good guy and a good runner and a good person, and man, we all miss him. Yeah. We really do.
They've named an arena after him at IUP, donation by Chad Hurley, one of the people who ran under Coach Fry, donated a lot of money, and the stipulation was that the basketball arena would be named after him.
That is correct. It was the Kovalchuk Convocation Center, and it's the Ed Fry Arena. And like the joke, it's like, yeah, I got a basketball, volleyball court arena named after me, and I'm a track coach and I'm a music professor. Because there's quite a combination.
Yeah. What was your involvement in road racing apart from university athletics? When did you get involved with road racing, and where did that take you?
After I graduated in 76, I thought long and hard about coming back for that last year of eligibility. But the NCAA rules were set up different again from what they are now. And if you graduated, you couldn't come back as a grad student like you can now and use up that remaining eligibility. So I'd have had to postpone graduation, come back for a year and take the classes. It was a tough decision, but again, it came down to economics. I just didn't have the money. And I didn't want to go any more in debt. And then when I did, of course, looking back at it now, I wish I would have, but at the time, I thought that was the right decision. So I ended up with a teaching position in Bedford, Pennsylvania at Bedford High School. But also at the time when I graduated, there was a fellow by the name of Bill Gregg out of Jeannette, Pennsylvania. And Bill Gregg had put together a cross-country team called the Jeannette Harriers. It was one of the oldest at the time running clubs in the country. And anybody in western Pennsylvania who still wanted to compete cross-country-wise joined up with the Jeannette Harriers. So I did. That was my first outlet was running outside of college. Again, you're talking 76, 77. Now the running boom's really going full bore. Frank Shorter wins the 72 marathon, then comes back, gets a silver in 76 at Montreal. And the running boom had really taken off, brought along with it a lot of the road races, which were really starting to pop up everywhere. I started hitting those races. When you're a teacher in the state of Pennsylvania, you have to get 24 credits post-graduation to get permanently certified as a teacher in the state. So I would go back to IUP for the summer for 6 weeks to take a couple classes, stay at the cross-country house in the summer at a really reduced rate, and train for 6-7 weeks, get back in shape, and go back to teaching. So that really kept the conditioning going as much as it could. And it just went from there, and then it was time to try a marathon. In fact, I actually tried the first marathon in summer of 1974. 22 of us went out to Toledo, Ohio, which was called the Glass City Marathon.
Right.
Tom McGuire had gone out before, Kim Lolich, another alumni who was a few years ahead of us named Donnie Slusser. Coach Sutton let us take our IUP uniforms out, so a bunch of us went out there. And my longest run was 11 miles going into it. And I ran with Tim Lolich, who had ran the year before, and we were running with a fellow who ran from California named John Blanc, who was also from the Uniontown area. And we started dead last. Tim goes, we got a lot of race. It was Father's Day Sunday in June of 74 and 80 degrees and very warm. And then 13.1 miles out, 13.1 miles back, finished with a lap on the track at the University of Toledo. Stayed in their dorms for like $5. We just started taking people off, and they gave real nice glass medals at the Glass City Marathon to the top 50. So the goal was finish in the top 50, and we're passing people, and we get to the turnaround, and you start seeing the people coming back, so we could start guessing where we were. Sluss was winning, who ended up winning, Donnie Slusser. Saw our other teammates. So we hit the turnaround, we were 88th, 89th, and 90th. I'm thinking, well, no medal. John Blanc took off. When should we go? Because there's a lot of race left. Relax. So now we know where we are in the pecking order. We start picking people off. If we're in the 80s, we're 79, 65, 60. We caught John Blanc. He was cooked. We're moving along. We're coming up on the 20-mile mark, and we're about 53rd, 54th. And we get there at the aid station at 20 because they didn't have them every mile. And it's warm. There's like 6-7 people stopped at the aid station. Timmy and I looked at each other, said, we're not stopping. So boom, we're in the medal hunt. And we picked up another fellow from ran for Bowling Green. So we're running 44th, 45th, and 46th. We have 2 miles to go. Obviously, when your longest run was only 11 miles, you're feeling it. So we had to step up on a curb, take about 3 strides, and step off. When I stepped up on the curb, hamstring went straight into a cramp, which I had never had one before. I let out a yell, and the guys, what's wrong? I said, I don't know, but it hurts bad. Stepped down the curb on the other side, and the other hamstring went, so I'm like severely dehydrated with 2 hamstrings, and I'm thinking, man, I got 2 miles to go, and I'm not going to get one of these medals. They said, you want to do it? Go ahead, guys, go. I guess when you only have 2 miles left, I shortened my stride where I could shuffle in, and no one caught me, so I finished 46. Got the medal, had 50-cent size blisters because I ran in a pair of leather Adidas shoes, finished on the track, and it was a high-tech race at the time. They gave you a little finishing glass. They had a chain link fence with a hose pushed through it. That was the water stop at the end. Filled that glass up about 6 times, laid down in the middle of the football field at the University of Toledo, and could not move. I'd lift my arm would cramp. I'd bend my neck would cramp. I thought, well, I'm just going to lay here and die. They finally came and picked me up, and I swore I'd never run another marathon again, and ended up running 38 more.
Wow.
And 25 of them were consecutively at Boston.
Well, let's talk about Boston. What was your first Boston, and what was it like getting into the Boston Marathon when you first started?
Again, as it still is, Boston, you had to have a qualifying time. Early on, the qualifying time for my age group was under 2 hours and 50 minutes. And I had qualified that fall myself. I don't know if Ed Fry went up that year or not. So I went up to New York and qualified there at the New York City Marathon with Bill Hampton.
Uncle Will. to those who know
Uncle
him?
Will. Uncle Will. So that got me into Boston. So I applied. I was teaching at Bedford. And it just so happened I had a very good high school friend who was still living in Boston. So I called up Jerry Davidson. I said, Jerry, I'm coming up for the marathon. He said, stay with me. I ended up being a basketball and volleyball official at Bedford. So I would do those games to set aside to pay for the airfare and stuff to get up there. And I stayed with my friend Jerry. He showed me around the city of Boston, how the subway worked, where to go, where to eat. Borrowed a car from a friend, drove me out to the start, and met me at the finish. I think it would have been 1979. Chico Seiko was in the hunt, but Bill Rogers beat him that year. I think it was one of 3 or 4 in a row that Bill Rogers had won. Mm-hmm. It was really neat. You're running a really, really big marathon for the first time. It obviously had a great history and still does. And it was quite an experience. It was a 40-some degree, rainy, drizzly day. I ended up running like 2:41, which was a PR by a few minutes. And I thought, okay. And then I went back the next year, and all of a sudden I had 17, 18, 20 years, and ended up running 25 straight times and had my personal best there, 2 hours and 25 minutes.
Wow. What were some of your most interesting experiences there, not just in times, across the decades of running Boston?
Yeah, it's such a great atmosphere, especially early on. All the major shoe companies would have parties, either before or after. And if you could get in one of these parties, it was always a great time because there's no telling who you could run into. The watering hole the bar could go to was called the Elliott Lounge, which was about a half mile from the finish line. And boy, if you could get in the Elliott after the race, everybody wanted to get in there. It was just a great place to be. You might be sitting there having a beer with Alberto Salazar or Joan Benoit. I mean, everyone went there. Or New Balance would have a party at the ballroom of the Howard Johnsons, which was down in a couple blocks past the finish. And all their athletes, whether they were basketball players, runners, or whatever. I mean, it's tremendous after party atmosphere. The whole weekend is just a big atmosphere up there. It's Patriots Day weekend in the state of Massachusetts. So everything shut down, and the marathon is the big thing. They would have the Red Sox would play early so the crowd could get out of the Fenway Park to come over and watch the race go by.
Great.
So a lot of great stories. And having gone up there, when anyone new was coming up, they would stop with me and check with me, whether it was Mike Higgins. I know we went up there a few times. A lot of the guys from IUP, Kerry Green many a time. It was almost like a working vacation. Didn't want to lose sight of the race, but boy, you could really just enjoy the whole weekend up there.
But what about that community? You talked about the great community you have as a cross-country team, the cross-country house. There's a community of people who do Boston every year. When did you feel that you were part of that?
They have a group that put together right after I finished my 25th, and I already made my mind up it was going to be my last marathon. A fellow who lived up in the New England area put together a group called the Quarter Century Club, which was anyone that had ran the Boston Marathon 25 years consecutively or more. They put it together, and that was nice. I got right into that club. Last time I checked, and I haven't checked for 3 or 4 years, I had the fastest individual time of anyone that had done that, including a guy named Johnny Kelly, the elder, who had won it a couple of times back in the 40s.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's very cool.
There's maybe a little over 100 people who have done that. Now, some of these people have gone for 45, 50-some years. And Johnny Kelly has ran like 55 straight years. So that was sort of nice. And what they've done through that, the Boston Athletic Association, which puts on, in conjunction with John Hancock or whoever else their sponsors may be, that if you want to come back and run the Boston Marathon any year, we will let you in without having to qualify at a race somewhere else, which I have not taken them up on, and I don't know if I ever will. But I've learned a lot of times, never say never.
Right. Talking about these community, Boston then kind of become a special city to you, I think.
Right. You learn the ropes on the city. I did a lot of photography work initially with the Pittsburgh Marathon, and through the Pittsburgh Marathon, as I found out, is race directors from other races take care of other race directors. So you come in from Boston, you want to see what we're doing in Pittsburgh, come down, we'll take care of you. You want to come up from Pittsburgh to Boston, come up, we'll take care of you. So I made some contact that way, which worked out really well because a lot of times I would go up there and find out where the elite runner suite was and chit-chat with people up there. I'd help with the Pittsburgh Marathon at their elite area. I got to know the original founders real well from the New York City Marathon, which was Fred LeBeau and Alan Steinfeld. Mm-hmm. They were hired initially as consultants to get the Pittsburgh Marathon initially started. people. So you make contacts like that. And then if I knew I was going to go up to New York and not run, but if I wanted to take some photographs or knew some people were going to be up there, I'd have the people I call Alan Steinfeld, say, Alan, hey, I'm coming up. Can you get me hooked up with press credentials? No problem at all. You learn to work the ropes in that community.
How far did you bend the ropes? How far did you get with your press credentials?
You could get anywhere you wanted if you worked it right. You could go just about anywhere you wanted to with your credentials. I know one year I went up to New York, and Don Friedline was up there, and another runner, a very good runner, Malcolm East from Pittsburgh, was up there, invited athletes staying at the invited hotel. And I wasn't running, but I had gotten credentials. So I went with them and found out that Malcolm wasn't going to the pre-race dinner that they sponsored at Tavern on the Green, which is right at the finish line of the New York City Marathon in Central Park. So I went and got Malcolm's, essentially his dinner ticket, and used it. So I'm up at the Tavern on the Green with all the invited athletes. They've got the game faces going on. I'm thinking, well, I'm just here to eat. Go up to the bar and take liberty of the bar tab. That was fun. And one of the fellows who was up there checking things out was Marty LaCour. He used to be the American record holder of 5,000 malers, one of the all-time great malers in U.S. history. He was doing the ABC commentary. And I kept running into Marty at the bar. After about the third or fourth time, he goes, "Oh, you're drinking a lot if you're racing on Sunday." He goes, "Well, let's go have another one."
Great.
One other time during those 25 consecutive going up there, another friend of mine named Brent Hawkins, who's since moved up to Connecticut area. We go up to Boston a lot to run sometimes, or just meet people we had met and have a good time. Well, I was between jobs once, and Brent initially was working with the Pittsburgh Marathon. Brent met me at Connellsville, and we drove up. It was Easter weekend. We went straight to the Elliott. We didn't have a place to stay. Eventually, late in the evening at the Elliott, here comes Marty LaCour in, who again was doing commentary for ABC Network. And Brent knew Marty real well. Marty LaCour was a fellow named Jimmy Carnes, who was a track coach in Florida, started what was called the Athletic Addict Future. And Brent had a franchise in Uniontown with another friend of his by the name of Phil Foley, who also had one in Morgantown, West Virginia. When Marty came into the Elliott late at night, Brent says, "Oh, we got a place to stay." We bought Marty a drink, introduced ourselves. Marty LaCour and Phil Foley were good friends. They both ran at Villanova. So we were saying, "Hey, we need a place to stay." And first thing Marty said, "You guys got your sleeping bags?" "Yes, we do." ABC got me a place 2 blocks from the finish. Let's go. We stopped at the car, got our bags, and next thing you know, we're at the Lennox Hotel with Marty in his room. It's a lot of stories like that.
What about Boston Garden?
Boston Garden was another great story. I was up there, I believe this was 1987, 88. I always wanted to see a professional basketball game, and I always liked the Celtics. And we had a gorgeous April Sunday, and the race at Boston was always then Monday at 12 o'clock, and I was staying with an IUP former roommate, Terry Green. "Terry, I'm going up to the Garden to see if I can get a ticket." So I go up to the Boston Garden, take the train up, Green Line, get off at the old Boston Garden. They're selling ticket scalpers all over the place. The Celtics actually won the World Championship that year. They're playing the Chicago Bulls in this game. One guy had a ticket. He wanted $20, or say he started at $40. I didn't buy it. Went across the street, got a Coke. He's having trouble peddling that ticket, so it's about 10, 15 minutes before the game starts. I said, "I'll give you $20. It was a $14 ticket. So I got the ticket 3 rows from the top in the old Boston Garden. It wasn't air conditioned. It was hot. Now, just about the week before that, I had bribed or had gotten in the mail Popular Photography magazine, and I was perusing through the back of it. "Get your press pass here, $9.95. I what the heck? I sent it. I get this piece of cardboard saying American Image News. Press your photo here. I go down in the McCrory's, and there's a little black and white phone booth. You get the 4 pictures, had my picture taken, trimmed it off, pasted it on this thing, had it laminated, put a little hook on it. And what the heck? I threw it in my camera bag. I took my camera bag to the Boston Garden. So I break my camera out, and I'm taking these pictures of all the banners and stuff. And I look underneath the basket where Celtics were warming up, and there are all kind of people down there taking pictures. I thought, oh, what the heck? Where's my press pass go? Clipped it on my shirt, went back down. I said, I think at this door, boom, I'm on the parquet floor. So I'm taking all these photographs of the Celtics warming up, and everyone leaves, and the game's getting ready to start. So I'm just going to stay here. I got to sit way up on top. So they're doing all the introductions. I get a tap on my shoulder from an usher. He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Point to my tag. I'm shooting the game," which I was. And he goes, "Well, where's your regular credential?" And I thought, well, I told the fella, since I was on the ground floor, but I went upstairs to get it, and they had ran out. Is that okay? He goes, "Yeah, it's okay, no problem." I said, "Great, I'm going to shoot the game from here." Now we're about 3-4 minutes into the game, and I'm standing on the platform that holds up the basket. I'm literally one step from the floor, and I get a tap on my shoulder, and it's a regular Boston policeman. He goes, "What are you doing?" "I'm shooting the game." So I put in my credential. He took it off my shirt. "Where's your regular credential?" I thought, well, it worked once. So I went up to get it. They ran out. They said to come down. It wouldn't be a problem. Okay. He gives it back to me. He said, "Where are you going to shoot from?" I said, "I'm going to shoot from right here." He goes, "Well, you really can't." So I'm running with my story. He goes, "Well, why not?" He goes, "Well, this spot's for the CBS handheld camera. There's a guy at the handheld video cameras for TV. I'm on his spot." So he said, "Just walk around the floor. They'll have take down on the floor American Image News where you're supposed to shoot from." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I give up my spot for the CBS television network, walking around knowing that there's no spot called for American Image News, and I'm stepping over UPI, Sports Illustrated, Boston Globe, literally walking by in front of both benches. And just to behind and just to the right of the Celtic bench were like 20 or 30 empty seats. So I thought these must be comps that never passed out. So I sat down about 2 seats off the bench and watched the whole game.
Wow.
And Michael Jordan threw in 63 points that day, set a single game playoff record, which stands to this day.
Right. That was that game. Wow.
It was that game. I came back, told Terry Green that story, and he still laughs every time we tell it.
Well, that game, they're all filmed, but that game being Michael Jordan 63, there's probably a lot of clips. We should go through YouTube, see if we can spot you in the crowd there.
You look to the left, the bench right back in that little area, I'm sitting there.
Yeah, but this is sad Celtic faces, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Well, that's brilliant.
A lot of good stories.
You know, I went to the 2000 Olympics almost like you did. I got a press credential.
Oh, it's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, so I had finish line, center court, seats to everything. Yeah, I've sort of bluffed my way when I went to the Olympic credentials desk. And
you got something to show them, and you talk confidently, it'll go a long way.
Let's talk about your transition from competitor to coach. Did that overlap? And how'd you get into coaching?
When I graduated in 1976 from IUP, I picked up the job at Bedford High School in Bedford, Pennsylvania, which is in the south central part of the state, right off the turnpike. I always knew that when I graduated, I wanted to coach. I got hired at Bedford. I had an assistant position, and I applied for it and got it because not that many people want to coach some of the minor sports, especially track and field at the time there. So the transition from runner to coach was pretty much one and the same. I was still being competitive, still running on my own. The head coach at the time, Bill Krebs, who was one of the nicest gentlemen I've ever met, said that I need to be the head coach this year because there's a lot of little things that you don't know because you haven't done them yet as far as administrative stuff, physicals, schedules, and all that. I said, fine, I want to coach. I got the kids rolling for them the first time with conditioning and took it from there. I would run with them.
Nice. There's stories among the community of teams. I myself, our coach quit over a contract dispute. So my cross-country high school team was going to not be allowed to compete, and we had to get somebody that day, and we found a guy in the school system in the elementary school who said, I don't know anything about this, I'll show up. And we said, we'll coach yourselves, we just need a body there. So when you started coaching, you're of course very experienced distance runner. What about the field events?
That was a learning experience from the get-go. First of all, I got to set the scenario with our facilities at Bedford High School at the time. It was a 2-lane cinder track, which was 401 yards around.
2 lanes.
2 lanes. We had 4 for the straightaway, and the lower curve was down close to a creek. So if it rained hard, the lower curve would flood. So that's what I inherited. The high jump and the pole vault and the long triple shot disc, we threw off the edge of the parking lot. Wow. They had a box at the edge of the parking lot for the pole vault. And that was it. And I knew very little about the field event. So I grabbed books that I could find, went to some clinics. The one we went to was held at the University of Maryland. The district sent me down. And I learned along the way. The facilities were so antiquated at the time there, it was unbelievable. I said, okay, where's our high jump and pole vault pit? The kids came down. We had about 100 yards to go from the edge of the parking lot to the school. with this great big bag of foam rubber and fishnet. I said, okay, where's the pit? Because that is the pit.
How unusual was it for the other teams that you competed against? Were you at the bottom of the facilities ladder, or were other schools in the same thing?
We were at the bottom of the barrel of Bedford County at that time. There was no doubt in my mind. So we high jumped in the foam, then we moved the foam over to the pole vault pit. We had, I think, 2 poles, and that's what we jumped in. The next board meeting, I went to the board and said, no, you have a very serious situation here. You need to buy a high jump and pole vault pit. It's dangerous. They looked at me and said, we're not buying anything. And they didn't.
Wow.
So the next year, the student council bought us a high jump pit, which we used for both. And the following year, they bought us a pole vault pit. And so that was a huge upgrade.
So it's funded by the student, not the school district.
Those pits were bought essentially by the students.
Wow.
Now, since then, they put in a beautiful 6-lane all-weather track. They have their own SAT system, and they have their own invitational. But I was there. It was Spartan. I felt like a civil engineer the first couple of days of track, because I'd go down the rule book and, okay, this is where the hurdles go for the high hurdles, for the low hurdles for girls. And then I put different colored popsicle sticks around for the intermediate hurdles. Then, since we're 401 yards, I'd have all different exchange zones because the way the setup was. So, and I knew the rules as far as what went where, which for us was actually a huge home field advantage when we went there. And then I just started learning field events. I gravitated to the field events that were the easiest. A long jump wasn't too tough to pick up. And a high jump wasn't too bad. Plus, we had some good athletes. We had a lot of good athletes.
How did the facilities challenge affect the competitiveness or attitude of the athletes?
I think they were so used to not having everything, it didn't bother them too much. The pole vault, which I knew very little about, my instructions for the pole vault for the kids were clear the bar, land in the pit, don't get hurt.
Over the years, with the upgrading facilities and upgrading your experience and passing, what accomplishments are you fondly attached to in your coaching career?
When I coached initially at Bedford, I really enjoyed working with the kids. We had them go on and run it, and other than the very first year, every year we got a couple kids to the state meet.
Nice.
Both boys and girls. We were getting a good number of kids out between the girls coach and myself, and we were the only 2 coaches. We would have about 115, 120 kids out. We had the numbers, and it was gratifying to take a kid who didn't think he could do anything and watch him by 2 or 3 years running a 206 or 207 800. And I had one boy who came out as a junior, ended up running 2 flats in the 800. Had a boy that came from football who was extremely poor situation, lived in the middle of nowhere in Bedford County, ended up being a 52, 53-foot shot putter. A lot of times our first meet that we would go to was called the Tri-State Invitational, which they still have. It was held at Mount Lebanon High School outside of Pittsburgh. And I would get the school van, figure out some times that we could run, put them in, and take 11 or 12 kids down to this meet. And this one boy, Jimmy Brandt was his name, his first time he'd ever been to Pittsburgh. And we're driving down the Parkway, and he's seen all these big buildings. It was a cultural experience for him. And Mount Lebanon had an all-weather football field, an all-weather track, and his coach, "You think it's okay if I go out and step on that field?" Jimmy, "Yes, you can. No one's going to say a word."
It's like
so,
Field of Dreams.
Yeah, those kind of memories are really good. And then I got out of coaching for a while. Then when I went back to teaching in 1993, I started coaching again at Laurel Highlands High School in Uniontown. They had just put in a 6-lane all-weather track. I'm thinking, man, this is like a Taj Mahal compared to what I'm used to coaching with before. It was gravitating.
Apart from the facilities, the tracks, maybe we can talk about the shoes that you had back then and so on, but what about the rules, the officiating? What's different from the 70s over the decades?
The rules for track have actually gotten slightly more lenient on a lot of things. It used to be you were never allowed to have any jewelry. They've got rid of that rule. Uniforms had to be exactly precise. They've lightened that up on some. They still have a lot of rules that are set in play. Initially, it used to be you were allowed to have a false start. Now they changed that rule. If you false start now, you're out of that particular event.
And what did you think about those kind of changes?
I think they were all pretty much for the good. Now, the false start rule actually at one time worked in our favor. I had a high hurdler named Jeff Hess in Bedford, and I would go up to IUP and talk to our hurdlers. Hey, show me what to do. Show me some workouts. And Jeff was a pretty good hurdler, so he makes the state meet his senior year at Shippensburg when they had a 6-lane track, and they still had the false rule in. So he makes it to the semis the next day. So they have 2 heats of 6 people in a heat. They're taking the top 3 from each heat to the final later in the afternoon. And we're in with the fastest kid time-wise in the state. And I'm thinking, well, we made it to the semi because on paper we should not have any chance of making it to the final. Gun goes up, false start. Gun goes up again, false start. Gun goes up again, 3 false starts. None of them are on our runner and 3 other guys. Gun goes up again, another false start. The fastest guy in the meet false starts out.
Wow.
I'm thinking, okay. I said, we got a shot here. And sure enough, he went up. He finishes 3rd, makes it to the final. And hey, we're in the final. And Coach, what do? I said, go back to your room, sit there, I'll come get you.
And don't false start.
Don't false start. Finish 6th. We'll get our 6th place medal and be happy as could be. So we go. That's what we do. He runs. He finishes 6th. Flags go up everywhere. They disqualify 2 other runners for intentionally failing to clear the hurdles. He ends up 4th in the state.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of it. I've seen at the Pennsylvania State meet false start in the 1,500 meters. Well,
yeah.
A guy just too nervous and their whole weekend's over. Yeah.
Now, if you got to coach kids that said, don't anticipate anything. You just wait for the sound and go.
Yeah.
And we have our first meet coming up next week, and I'm sure that we'll have someone challenge that and probably get false started because we have a lot of young kids that I'm sure they'll be nervous, and it happens.
What was your motivate? You knew you wanted to be a coach. Was there competitive drive? I know you enjoyed, as you said, working with kids. What motivated you to start coaching and then stay with it?
Well, I had so many good coaches and people that helped me that I still wanted to be in contact with the sport. I still wanted to run races. Road races were becoming bigger and bigger in the mid to late 70s. And quite honestly, I wanted to give back to the sport that gave me so much. Yeah. We didn't have a cross-country team at Bedford High School. I didn't coach cross-country until I got to Laurel Highlands High School. But I just felt that I got some knowledge here. I want to pass it on. In the field events, I learned. You do something long enough and read about it and watch, you can learn just about everything you can on anything, especially in track and field. And we've had some great success at Laurel Highlands, especially in all things, in the pole vault. And I've learned how to coach the pole vault, and I'm not the only person. I've had a lot of people help with the pole vault to have the success that we've had. But I wanted to give back to the sport.
What have your pole vaulters done recently?
We had a girl just last year just missed medaling at the state meet. 2006, we had a boy who won the state meet and set the state meet record at 16.2. We have a girl who's 2-time WPIAL champ, which is 7 in the state of Pennsylvania. She won that twice and holds the district record. She's placed 4th at states. We've had other places the state meet or get there in the pole vault. We've had 3, 4, 5, 6 guys, girls medal at the state meet.
Nice. How's your identity changed? One, you were a musician, you became a runner, you became a coach. Did those identities flow into each other? And what's your identity now when you think of yourself?
The music went to the wayside probably in the mid and late 70s. The running, I still try to run. I cannot be competitive anymore. I'm a yesterday's hero as far as that. In fact, the kids know me more now as a coach than they would know me as an athlete. I can tell all the war stories, but they're like, yeah, okay, can you show us? And no, I can't anymore. Just Mother Nature has caught up to me, as it has many people in the 70s. But it was a nice progression. It left the music behind, the coaching and the competitive running for myself was intertwined for a long time. And it probably wasn't until about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And now it's just to the point where I go out and run to stay fit when I can, coach and learn everything I can and keep things rolling that way now.
How many people from the 70s running that you knew or now encounter? Just active in the sport, officials, coaches?
I know a few of the fellows from IUP are still involved in the coaching end. Steve Goldcamp at Beaver, Eric Shaver at Bishop Canavan, Danny Kunkelman coached for a long time at Blairsville. He's now a track and field official who is very well thought of. He always helps run a lot of the officiating at the state track meet at Shippensburg every year. Tim McVeigh used to be a longtime coach at Central Catholic. He has since moved on. And a lot of those guys in the 70s did coach, but there's not too many of us left right now.
The last thought. We don't know when we're going to be born, where we're going to be born, or anything like that, but you were born into the time that the 70s was very formative for your running. How do you think? You've coached kids through the other decades. How was it to be brought into running in the 1970s? How does that decade going to stack in history?
Oh, it was the explosion. No doubt. When Frank Shorter won the gold in Germany in 72, and a little bit before that, Bill Bowerman at the University of Oregon brought back jogging late 60s, and that jogging craze and the running craze started. And then the competitive races started popping up everywhere. There were an awful lot of really good athletes that were running races. Mm. And Western Pennsylvania in the late 70s and continued into the 80s was a hotbed for distance runners. And a lot of other events in track and field, but distance runners, it was stacked. But you look at the times now, and it sounds like an old guy saying, oh, yeah, if could run those times now, I'd have won this race by 3 minutes, but we would have.
Yeah.
Well, we might have been 3 minutes faster and been 10th.
Yeah.
5K. So there are a lot of people still running, and the races have gotten huge as far as number-wise. The quality at the top of those races now does not match nearly what the quality of the athletes were running back in the 70s.
Do you have any insights or ideas why that might be?
I think the younger kids coming up today have too many other opportunities to do things.
Right.
It's real easy to find a job. The electronic age has put a damper on kids wanting to go out. When it's easier, I can play some type of games on the computer. And I think that's been a big part of it. Back then, there weren't a lot of job opportunities if you were a person, especially a younger kid or a collegian, to do anything. So we go and run, and then you say, I can go better than this. And it was a thing to do. It was just one of the things to do. It was, the marathon was a mystique. So you had to try a marathon. But now the numbers are great in the races, but the quality, people don't want to devote that much time into it. I think too many other distractions are in the way.
Yeah, that makes the 70s a magical time in our memories.
It sure does. It sure does.
All right, Abbott, thanks for your time. It was great talking to you and catching up on all this stuff and getting your insights.
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me on and doing this. It was a lot of fun. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed another episode of Running in the 70s. Voices, stories, and memories of athletes who were running in the 70s. Until next time, wherever you are, keep looking forward and don't forget to look back.